Hey guys, I'm Randy Younger, and this is a very special edition of Under the Radar, where we talk all things film. And I have a very special guest with me tonight. We have filmmaker Daniel Poliner of the new drama Come Find Me. Daniel, how's it going?
Great, great. Thanks for having me.
Sure, sure. Thank you for taking the time. So I saw the film the other night. It's really wonderful. It's emotional. It's moving. It's about the characters and actual human beings in a time when we have movies that are about aliens and superheroes. It's very refreshing to see a movie like this. Tell everyone, how did the project originally come about?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I it's funny, my son who did these drawings is now 6, and I finished the first draft of the script the day before he was born. I originally wrote it for this actress, Sol Miranda, who plays one of the 2 lead roles in the film. And she had been in my first feature film called Jack Jules, Esther and Me, which will be the same company that's releasing this film is re-releasing that film as well. So you can look out for it. And she played a more of like a supporting character in that film. And I just like the moment I met her, I was like, oh, like shit, like sorry to swear, like she's just got so much spirit, so much talent. It's like oozing out of her. Like at her audition, like I started crying, then she started crying. Like I was so moved that I had always said to her, I'm gonna write something for you, that I want to base the whole thing around you. And that's really where it started. I wasn't sure whether it was gonna be a short film or a feature film. I knew that I wanted her. Eventually, I kind of settled on the idea that she'd be a school principal, and my wife works at a school very much like the one in the movie. And so I was just kind of honestly, I just asked my wife. I was like, "How does your principal talk again? Just say like a couple sentences like your principal." And then I just started imagining Soul, that was it. And I just started writing, and and so we shot what you saw as the whole second half of the film back in like 2017. And as we were editing it, and I was sitting there watching it with and she had such an incredible performance. There's so many other amazing actors in it as well, but I was watching her, and I didn't know whether because at that point it was like a 45-minute movie, which is like too long to be a short and too short to be a feature.
Right.
Me and my editor were just sitting there watching her daughter, played by Victoria Cartagena, circling around here. There was a wedding in the movie where her daughter is marrying a Jewish person, and you're seeing the rehearsal wedding, and you're seeing her circle around, and her daughter is circling around, and Soul's character is watching her daughter, and there's this whole circle happening.
Hmm.
And I remember like saying to my editor, I was like, this movie is about the 2 of them, and what I ended up doing is I ended up sitting down and talking to Victoria Cartagena, who plays the daughter. And at the time she was shooting the show Manifest. And so her hair at that point was totally different. And I was like, I think I'd like to write a whole first half of this movie about you and about your character. And particularly since her hair was different, I was like, all right, well, we don't need to make it all be at that same weekend that she's getting married. I was like, let me actually just go back in time a little bit and just understand who she is, and in that journey understand their relationship. And I think so it's kind of a crazy way to make a feature film, because it was like a lot of it was written in 2016 and 17 and then shot in 2017, and a whole new portion of it was written in 2019 and shot toward the end of 2019, and then put together. And yeah.
So yeah, what was it like basically piecing together a movie over 5 years? I mean, how challenging was that?
it I think it in some ways it was one of the most profoundly moving and like cathartic experiences. There's a moment where you're literally seeing the characters hand off. The first half of the movie is all entirely from the perspective of the daughter, and when you watch it and then all of a sudden it comes up and it says 2 years later, and it really is 2 years later, and the actors look different. You know what I mean? They look like 2 years has passed.
Right.
There's something really exciting about that. On a granular level, it's an ultra low budget movie, which means that everybody in the crew was either working for free or for minimum wage,
Mhm.
and like it's no joke. Like the reason that whole movie moved back 2 years, I'm so glad that it did in terms of the storytelling. But like Victoria had another job, she changed her hair, and so I had to rewrite the story to fit that. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where I'm like going to be forever grateful. The same cast and the same crew just kept coming back for we're going to do 2 days to pick up a couple more things. Now we're coming back for 8 days to pick up this. And
Hmm.
I would say it was like totally unnerving all the time because you never knew exactly would it work with these shots. And sometimes we had to pick up extra shots when we were doing the other half where we were going to stick them into the old half. And
Mhm.
okay, everybody looks 2 years older, but can we sneak can we sneak this in? Um, so it's a tightrope all the way to the end. I mean, we were playing with it literally up until we locked the sound a few months ago, and with Soul, and in particular, Soul was watching the cuts and giving me notes, and I was reworking, like literally like reworking some of the voiceover, and
Hmm.
honestly like dubbing in a little bit of new dialogue just to make sure that we landed the plane and the two pieces came together to give this what we really wanted, which is like how can you tell a story about two different people and
Hmm.
their relationship and the love that they share, but really be from the two different perspectives.
And I'm really so happy that you basically wrote this movie for Soul,
Mhm.
because she is a phenomenon. She is a real force
Yeah.
in the industry. She is totally genuine and believable and likable in this role. I don't know much about her filmography, but I'm definitely going to go back and check out pretty much everything she's done because she really made this film. Like she was the star.
Yeah. I mean, that was the design from the beginning because I knew, like, from the moment I met her, I was like, I can't believe other people aren't just writing her huge dramatic pieces. And she's primarily known because she had a recurring role on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and so she was on that show for many years. More
Mhm.
recently, she did a show on Netflix, Archive 81, I think, on Netflix. But she's a perennial New York City character actor who's always like, there's so many of them, and I'm really proud that so many of them are in our movie. Like, there's just a ton of New York City actors, theater actors, people who've gotten by doing episodes of Law and Order, and happy to, like, it's a grind, and I was really I just felt like consistently I wrote for actors like that I knew,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? And so every actor, with very few exceptions, every actor was walking into a part that was written for her, or him. um, and that's the advantage of being in New York and having all of this production, all this theater, to ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in Queens,
Oh,
and
great.
I just absolutely love seeing New York portrayed on screen when it's basically a character all on its own, and it's just really special for me to see it captured on film. And this film is no different. You definitely, especially the scenes with Christina doing her early morning jogs,
Yeah.
you know it's great. It's like I felt right there with the characters. Uh,
Hmm.
so, but tell me a little bit about the casting. How did you come across the actress for Christina? Were there other actresses in mind, or was it always for her?
That was so back in 2017, Christina's role was big, but not the most prominent. It was written for Soul. And my saving grace is that I've been working with the same casting director for, I mean, well over 10 years, 15 years, named Julie Schubert, and who had cast Manifest and a lot of other shows. And we knew, actually, that was the only part that I really didn't know going into the original production. And
Hmm.
Julie was more or less like, look, I'll hold an audition for you if you want, but I think you're going to want to offer it to Victoria Cartagena. And I was like, oh, and she was like, so I want you to watch a bunch of her stuff. And before you tell me to have an audition, I really want you to offer it to Victoria.
Wow.
And I literally just like watched a couple scenes of her and I was like, well, of course, like it was an instant thing. And then working with her, um, that right away, like within like a minute of shooting with her, she's somebody that, particularly if you watch the first half of the movie, which is all about her, where I just wrote the whole thing for her. um what I love about her is that she's portraying a character who's keeping a lot of things inside,
Hmm.
and very much when you block a scene with her, she's just like, she's careful, she's doing everything, she's like under the radar. If you
Hmm.
shoot it in a very wide shot, you'll just be like, oh, is she here, and then all of a sudden you put this close up, you put a tight lens on her, and then there's all this heartbreak, and you can see so
Mm.
much, and that's why so much of what the whole first half of the movie is, it's shot quite differently, because I just
Mm.
kept thinking this entire thing is going to be by close-up of her, putting this character in a situation where we can isolate her and watching her struggle with a lot of very difficult decisions.
Yeah, and a lot is going on in each of these women's minds. You can just
Yeah,
tell. I think they say more when they're not even speaking. It's all in the
yeah,
facial reaction. It's all in the tension, especially the scenes where they're together. It's just a
yeah.
completely believable mother-daughter relationship. And it's just, again, it's captured beautifully on film.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you
for
very much.
sure.
Hmm.
Um, so it seems to me that collaboration is very important to you on a set. Um,
Hmm.
how do you establish trust with your actors and that strong sense of collaboration?
I think um, it's something that I take a lot of pride in, and I tend to work with a lot of the same actors again and again. There's an actor in the opening scene of one of the opening scenes of the movie named Adam Lefevre, who plays Christina's old law school professor. And
Hmm.
my first movie with him was 20 years ago, and I just
Oh.
have kept writing. And again, I think some of the trust comes from, I just was like, okay, there's going to be a professor who's going to be kind, who's going to be looking out for her and trying to help her get a job. I'm going to write it for Adam. And I think that we had, very little to say about it, because he knew exactly what I was hoping for. But I think in general, I came from, I majored in theater in college. It was one of my majors. And like, I did a lot of theater directing early on. And I used to do much more like, we're going to rehearse, we're going to work things out. And I still do that a little bit. But on a movie like this, we really honestly didn't have time to rehearse. Like, again, I don't think I rehearsed ever with Soul.
Hmm.
We talked about it a little bit, but I think that instinctively, like, it was written for her. She knew what I wanted,
Hmm.
and we worked it out, like within, um, it's one of those things where, and again, if you have, like, say, someone like Tova Feldshuh, who's playing the mother-in-law in this movie, who's just a dynamic actor,
Yeah.
we did rehearse for like an hour. Like, she met with us for like an hour, but it was a situation where the part was fitting her so beautifully that the only issue is that it was more like I could also improv this and this and this. And it was like, oh my God, this like embarrassment of wealth, where we're going to just have to see what we want to, because,
Hmm.
the only other thing I'll say is that when you're at this budget level,
Hmm.
um, you only have 12 hours.
Hmm.
You cannot go over that. Nobody who's I cannot ask anybody who's working for free or for minimum wage. 12 hours is already outrageous. Do you know what I mean? It's not like a livable thing. It's like everybody's coming together to try to make this thing beautiful. You have to let them go and sleep. And so literally you're on a clock from the moment you start. And so part of me, I mean, at some point I hope I'll be able to work with bigger budgets, but like part of me is also just like, I love working with actors, that I love writing parts for actors so that they can come in, and I don't and we can get right to it. I'll storyboard it ahead of time with a DP. I prefer to have everything set ahead of time so everybody knows. The costume department knows what's going to be shot. The art department already knows. Everybody can have, like, it's going to be extremely tense to get everything in within 12 hours. I try to shoot like
Hmm.
30 setups in a day or more. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a lot.
How many days did this shoot take, this whole film?
Um, the first Basically, it was broken into two halves, as I said, and basically each one was like 8 or 9 days,
Mhm.
which, if you think about, given all the locations and everything else, is kind of insane, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and so we were really pushing it and like trying to, again, like I said, it's down to the last, like, it was always like, I have 3 shots left, I've got 40 minutes, we're going to try our best, like,
Hmm.
we're always going right up to the end and like hoping and trying to honor the crew and the cast to make sure that they can not fall over. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Right.
almost like, when you're working that hard, you have to make sure nobody gets hurt. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
It's like an endurance
um,
test. It's
it really is. Yeah, no, I think, and so I think that that's part of, again, why I've always loved writing things for people I know, because it's like, again, if you're writing for Sol Miranda, or you're writing for Victoria Cartagena,
Hmm.
she was sending me texts 30, 40 days before we were shooting, and she'd already memorized her lines. You know what I mean? And you know that when you're going to have that as your number one on your call sheet, and she's coming in so prepared
Nice.
that it's really just like she doesn't want to rehearse. She just wants to show up and do it, and she's ready, which is, I mean, it's all you could ever ask for as a
Of
director.
course. Do
Yeah.
you feel you work better under pressure?
I'd like to think that nobody works better under pressure. You know what I mean? Like I think it's the only way that I've ever worked as a director, frankly, because I don't know anybody. I think I always imagine that I'm like, oh, like these sets that are like, I'm sure like the Coen brothers have much more relaxed sets, but I'm sure that's phony, and I'm sure they're terrified out of their minds too. You know what I mean? But the only thing I can say is that for me, yeah, I seem to have done, I do okay with it, and then maybe someday it would be amazing to not to have maybe 80%, of what we're trying to
Okay.
accomplish in one day would be great.
If
Yeah.
only you can control that chaos, that'd be, yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so what do you hope? This film is very deep. It's very spiritual almost, and
Hmm.
it says a lot about human relationships, especially mother-daughter.
Hmm.
What do you hope audiences take away from the film?
I think first and foremost, I hope that they're moved. I hope that it engages them, and particularly these two lead actors, but right on down with everyone in the cast. What I was trying to do, there's this sense of light that is coming, like there's almost like a supernatural element to the story.
Hmm.
I think for me, you know, one of them is a principal, one of them is an attorney.
Mhm.
I tried to be super specific about their careers. I did a lot of research about what Victoria Cartagena's character would be specifically working on as an attorney. And I think sometimes in that specificity, I find that when I'm watching a movie, it opens me where I can just see the human being a little bit more. And I understand that if I can understand what that person's lunch is like and what that person's workday is like,
Hmm.
it opens my heart a little bit. And that was really what I was trying to do with all the characters, is like, how can I connect this so that a person who's coming to watch this movie will be able to see themselves, whether or not they're Latinx or Jewish, that, because the characters are, marrying someone in the Jewish persuasion.
Right.
My favorite movies are sometimes like foreign films where I'm just like, I have know nothing about this culture, and
Hmm.
yet at the same time I'm crying and I'm completely identifying with that person, right? And so I hope that there's this sense of everybody in their lives has a relationship with a loved one, whether it's a parent or someone else, where they just can't quite figure out how much they love each other and how to express that, and there's that tension and that difficulty, and I
Right.
think that's the overarching theme, but there's so many, within that, that's, I think, what I would hope most people would come away from it.
Well, I'll tell you, I was definitely moved, especially again with Saul's performance. And I should add that I'm actually half Puerto Rican, and I know that Saul is Puerto Rican. So
Hmm.
she basically seemed like an aunt to me. So it was really cool seeing her,
Oh, great.
yeah, in that type of role.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
tell her.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a bit. I just want to know, obviously you're a very gifted filmmaker. I'm curious, who are some of your filmmaker influences?
Um, oh, my influences. Well, I think one of the biggest influences on this specific movie, is a Taiwanese filmmaker named Edward Yang, who made a movie called Yi Yi that won the Palme d'Or back in 2000. And that's a movie just about a handful of like a family in Taiwan, which again, I like know nothing about anyone from Taiwan. And I went and saw it like 3 times in the movie theater, and it just deeply made me cry. And also, I also learned afterward that because of his budget, he was doing a lot with light and about shooting people's reflections. I learned later it was like because he was like, I only had enough film to shoot, and he was like, I couldn't do coverage, so I was just bouncing it off and getting a beautiful reflection of the actors. But it was something that I was definitely exploring with this. And obviously growing up, the Coen brothers have meant a lot to me.
Mhm.
You know, and oh gosh, so many. But I think, yeah, I would probably start with them.
Okay. Favorite Coen
Yeah,
Brothers film?
a serious man.
Oh,
But
nice.
yeah, how about you?
That's a quieter one. I think it's a toss up between Barton Fink and The Big Lebowski. Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
pretty much every movie they've ever made has been
Yeah.
great, or at least really good. So yeah, they're definitely on my favorite filmmakers list. And I think you're going to be on that list too, Daniel.
Oh, thank you.
You're
I
getting
hope
there. Yeah, for sure, for
someday.
sure.
Someday. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
So I'm curious, what are some of the other challenges you faced on set?
Well, I think it's, I think it's really probably the best way to describe it is that the type of filmmaking I do, I would call favor-based filmmaking. And like, and again, I would say that some of the challenges are just like, some of it is logistical and some of it's personal.
Hmm.
We don't have any money. So honestly, in some of these scenes are written specifically where I'm like, I think I can get a doctor's office. I think I could, I live in downtown Brooklyn. So it was like, I knew that there were a handful of hotels down here. And if I was just persistent enough, one of them I could maybe guilt into giving me like, a bunch of hotel rooms for nothing. I
Huh.
knew somebody who was a lawyer who was going to maybe let us in and
Mhm.
shoot all those law firm scenes for free, which we did.
Wow.
And I think literally just getting crews in New York City,
Mhm.
getting gear. There's no way you're not like when you're at our financial level, there's no way to park. You can't like have it like anybody who's ever been in New York City sees these massive trucks whenever there's a film shoot. And like we didn't have that. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have that. And also when you're working for 12 hours, it became this thing where it was like, okay, but wait,
Yeah.
now we have to get all the gear across the city. Now what? You know what I mean?
Right.
And who's going to volunteer to stay up for an extra 4 to 6 hours to get to like, we're going to have to rent a truck. We're going to have to load it into the truck. All of those things are logistical nightmares.
Mhm.
Who can I get who's going to be willing, who's an experienced gaffer, who's an experienced key grip, who's going to be willing to work for minimum wage? You know what
Mm.
I mean?
Yeah.
When any other show in New York City is paying, like honestly, people like that are $700, $800, $900 a day,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the personal element that comes with that is, you have to be, for me, I'm like, I have very high standards for the storytelling that I want to do. Obviously, you could probably tell that it's like something that I'm storyboarding every shot. I'm agonizing over every line. They're written for people. And yet at the same time, I don't have the money to just like, I just don't have enough money to do anything where everybody's coming here as a favor. That's why I was calling it favor based. And so you're in that weird zone where it's like we were in a doctor's office for one of the scenes, and I remember her being like, "Whoa, this isn't what I thought," and I was really hoping you guys could leave within the next 2 hours. And it was like, and I'm like, okay,
Oh boy, crunch time.
yeah, and there's all that stuff about like, okay, you're here, and are you going to commit to? And I think what's great about Soul Miranda and so many of the other people working is just like, hey, we're here, we're doing this. We would have done it for free. You know what I mean? So we're here. Don't feel bad about our feelings. Like, because half the time I'm walking around being like, oh God, these guys are going to be so mad at me because I actually want to do that scene again. I don't think we have it and I want to do it again. But I'm like, and you have to, I think it's actually, to be honest with you, it's a personal thing that I'm working on. It's just like, if everybody's here, they're here to honor the story.
Hmm.
You got to tell them we got to do it again,
Yeah.
and that's a real battle.
Oh, the plight of indie filmmaking.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the movie looks great. It doesn't look like an indie film at all. It looks like
Oh, thank you.
like a big budget film, which is great. And I guess that's mostly due to the camera and lighting setup. Uh,
Amazing work by Colin Brazy, who's our DP. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, all right, Daniel. So we got about another minute or two. I just want to. Are there any other projects you're working on now that you could talk about?
Um, Well, Sol and I wrote a short film that we shot over the summer, and we're going to be hopefully having it screen in festivals. We wrote and produced it together, and we shot it in her hometown.
Hmm.
And that'll be coming out hopefully this spring on some festivals. And I think once this clears, I did that honestly because I remember I just said to Sol, like, we're having such a good time working together. And I was like, I don't, there's no way we could raise enough money to make another feature film right now, but let's just go do something, and because I think as a director, you got to keep working, you have to keep
Yep.
getting on set. And so for me, it was just a matter of like, let's do that. But
Mhm.
once this
It'll be
clears,
a short film.
it's a short film. Yeah. It's going to
Okay.
be, yeah. And that'll hopefully, we'll hopefully be bringing it to film festivals in the spring.
Nice.
And once this movie clears, I have a handful of outlined ideas, and I'm going to sit down and pick the next one that I'll write for the next feature.
Exciting. Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. So how can people see Come Find Me? How can they come
Great.
find me? Or
Come find me movie.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Anybody who's New York City based, starting Friday, we're going to be playing at the Village East Cinemas
Nice.
the 13th through the 19th of January.
Okay.
There's going to be talkbacks Friday night, the 7:15 show, Friday night through Monday night.
Hmm.
I'll be there with various cast members. Sol Miranda will be there most nights. And Sol Miranda, Victoria Cartagena, and Tova Felci will be there on Sunday night. And so anybody can see it at the Village East Cinemas. There's like 5 shows a day. Also, it's available on Amazon, Vudu, Apple TV, Google Play. So starting Friday, it's streaming everywhere. So
Nice.
please watch it. And these amazing actors.
That's so cool. I'm so happy for you, Daniel. This is exciting. The film is great. I'm positive audiences are going to love it because it definitely resonated with me. So yeah, it was just a beautifully made human drama. And also, I wanted to mention the school, the elementary school that she used was perfect. It was a perfect location for those scenes with Saul. So I just want to throw that in there.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Brooklyn New School. So, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right.
Well,
Well,
thanks so much.
yeah, Daniel, thank you for your time tonight. This is great. Everybody go see Come Find Me. I'm Randy Younger. I'm your host for Under the Radar. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.